Hello, welcome. It is time for my devotional, and glad to have you along. If you've been following along, we've been working our way through Proverbs in the Old Testament of the Bible. We've been working our way through one verse at a time, just looking at the things God has to teach us there about what it is to be righteous and good and wise people. It's a book of wisdom, meant to teach us how to be wise, which of course is definitely connected to morality. And so they go together. And so that's what this book is about. And we just been going through each verse and just finding out what we can from each verse, what we can learn. And so that's what we're doing today. We're in Proverbs chapter 6, verse 18. And so I'm going to read that. It's part of a 4-verse little paragraph that's got a context. So I'm going to read that context, and then we'll just focus on verse 18 for a minute. So here's what it says, starting in verse 16 and reading to verse 19. It says this: there are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. So that's our context. So it lists these 7 things, like God hates these things. He's and so use that word abomination, which is a way of saying he's disgusted or repulsed by these things. So God hates them. They're really not, he's not good with this. And then lists these 7 things. And there's a bit of a theme here, and we've been working our way through that. So you can check out, of course, yesterday's video if you want to look at verse 17, where it talks about the haughty eyes, the lying tongue, and the hands that shed innocent blood. But today we're going to focus on verse 18, which says, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil. Now, there's 2 ideas here that are very similar, but they're slightly different. And both of them, God hates these things, right? So God hates a heart that devises wicked plans. It's talking about this idea that God is disgusted by and repulsed by and hates people that, or the heart, right? So the person, this person that devises or invents evil, wicked plans, ways to do evil, ways to be more evil, finds ways to corrupt and to destroy and undo the good. And so God hates this. He hates that. And each of these things is applying to a different body part, right? Haughty eyes, lying tongue, hands that shed, a heart that does this, the feet that run rapidly. So that's just a method of trying to help you remember. But it's interesting that this rests on the word heart, right? Like that it comes from inside a person, that there's this desire and to do wrong, to do evil. And so, well, God hates that in a person. But then also feet that run rapidly to evil is this kind of similar, but it's the idea of somebody who quickly wants to go to an evil and to be involved in evil. It's like they enjoy it, right? They want to be in it. They're moving quickly to it. They want to be there. They enjoy it. There's this idea of eagerness to be part of evil. And so God is repulsed by that too. He finds that disgusting. And you might, it's not a hard one to understand why he would hate it, because it's evil, but more so for God even than us, because God himself in his very nature is what good is, right? When we talk about good and evil, we're talking about basically the things that are godly versus the things that are not, the things that are like God, who's perfectly good, and the things that are opposed to or opposite of God. So naturally, God is repulsed by the opposite of him, that kind of a natural understanding there, but he hates it. The things that are opposed to his nature, opposed to his goodness, he's disgusted by that thing. So we might ask the question, why would anybody be like this? Like, why would anybody want to devise evil? It doesn't seem like, well, it's not good, right? Why would somebody want to do that? Or why would someone enjoy evil? Like, why would humans ever do that? We know they do, but why? And, so we've kind of talked about this before, but, there's this idea that sin or being or choosing evil itself causes a corruption of our nature. So we will increasingly do evil and move deeper into evil until we get to the point where, we are devising evil and we are enjoying the evil, and we kind of get a taste for it. The same as you can get a taste for other things in life, right? You can acquire a taste for coffee. Maybe you didn't like coffee and you can start to drink it, and you can learn and acquire a taste for it, or for sugar, or for sweet, or for whatever, or for sour. Some people really love sour taste or whatever. And in a similar way, we can psychologically or emotionally or spiritually, we can start to acquire a taste for something. We can start to acquire taste for righteousness as God. As we move closer to God, we can get so we want to be even closer to God, more righteous. Or we can decide to reject God, move away from God, and slowly acquire more and more of a taste for that. So you go deeper and deeper, or as we might say, it corrupts you more and more. And the farther you get away from God, then like sliding down a hill, the more momentum you're going to get in that direction. And then any of us could fall into this place where you're devising new ways to be evil, or you're finding evil somehow pleasurable. We think about this kind of a person, the person who enjoys evil. We think of the extremes, like the psychopath, or a sadist who takes pleasure in somebody's pain, right? And we think about those extreme ends, and we think like we try to group all of that in, and we'll say, well, that's the worst case scenario, and so that's just talking about that, and we forget that is an end of a path. It's the extreme end of a path, right? Coming a little way away from that, you say, well, a person is just cruel. They're not a sadist. They can be cruel, very, very cruel. I'm sure you've met people in your life who are very cruel. They have something in them. They're just nasty, right? But then you come a little further away from the extreme, and well, a person could just simply have malice. They can be somebody who is angry and kind of bitter, and well, you can come a little further away, and a person simply hates other people. And you come a little further, and it's someone who simply doesn't have a moral code, right? You reverse that order, and you go, someone who doesn't have a moral code is someone that will fall into hate, who is someone who will then fall into malice, that can then move to cruelty, and then can move to sadism and whatever. That path is what this is about. A person gets to the end of that path, and that's repulsive to God. This is what we learned in the first couple chapters of Proverbs, where it talked about the two paths, and you choose a path that leads to life and a path that leads to death, a path that leads to more and more godliness, or a path that leads to more and more ungodliness. And this is kind of that extent. God hates it when people get down that path. That's a repulsive thing. They get to the point where they devise evil. And pride starts us in that path. So if we take a look at this verse in its context again, you see a progress here. In verse 17, it said, haughty eyes, pride, a lying tongue. And pride leads to that, leads to a lack of ability to deal well with truth. And that leads to hands that shed innocent blood. That leads to a heart that devises wicked plans. That leads to feet that run rapidly to evil. See, there's a bit of a progress here. I say all that to say this. Sometimes we are guilty as humans of thinking that the real bad stuff is just a subset of humans who have some sort of defect. But the rest of us, no, we're not like that. Sometimes, we do this little bad thing, we do that little bad thing, but we're not really like that. That's just a little subset of exceptionally defective people. But that's just not right. Any one of us is capable of incredibly bad stuff. It's a pathway that you walk on. It's a destination that you can get to. And any of us are capable of it. And that's why it's so important that we never start down that path, because we're all capable of it. We all have within us some little piece that's defective because of sin in the human race. And sin creates that little bit of defect, or a lot of defect, you might say, in all of us. And all of us have capability to go really, really bad. There's even a lot of psychological studies that have proven this, looking at the Nazis and what happened there, or looking at various other things. There's a number of famous studies that have shown that seemingly very normal people can be capable of really terrible things. And it's because the defect is in all of us. And that's why we need to come to God and have him teach us how to be good, how to go the right road and the right path. Here's a little proof for that. Why is it that in our culture, we say things like, this dessert is sinfully good? Sinfully good. That's an interesting statement. Sinfully good. Why do we say things like that? Because there's something in us that kind of likes the excitement of being sinful. It makes a good out of it, right? Feet that run quickly to evil are feet that have decided, there's something I like about the breaking the rules. You hear, in a more scandalous kind of example would be the people that talk about, oh yes, this woman, she's an angel in public, but she's a devil in the bedroom. It's like, a devil? You mean that she's a person in the bedroom that wants to cause harm and misery and suffering and pain? Is that what you mean? Well, no, that's not what they mean. But why make that connection? Because there's something built in it, or something built in, but something that has happened in humans that's defective, right? Sin corrupts. And if we allow it to grow, we end up in this place. And if we instead turn to God and say, God, I don't want to invent evil, and I don't want to take any pleasure in it, then God helps us come away from that. And he can redeem us and cleanse us of that. Anyway, there's your thoughts for today. That's what this verse is talking about. Was people, when they get to that place where they're just simply finding new ways to do evil, and when they're taking pleasure in it and rushing to it, God is opposed to that. I guess in the same way they're opposed to God. So that's something to think about. Let's not ever be those people. God bless you, and God help us to do this. God bless you. This is my last video for this week. Lord willing, we will get back to verse 19 on Tuesday. In the meantime, have a great weekend.